Okay, so okay. Okay. Oradar Pow, Jock and Vow, thank you all for attending this planning committee on 11th of February. The meeting has been held webcast with the exception of any business that the committee resolves to exclude the press and public because of the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. This meeting has been held with a hybrid meeting with planning committee members attending in person in the council chamber, County Hall, Riffin, or remotely via video conference. Those attending remotely are kindly asked to mute their microphones unless they are called upon to speak. Planning committee members are also asked to have their video switched on throughout the meeting unless you're asked to turn off your video to improve the quality of the audio link. When you are speaking, you are expected to restart your video once you've finished speaking. Please refrain from using the chat facility as messages sent are visible on the webcast. To aid the transparency of today's meeting and its business, can you conduct all your business through myself as chair? Okay, so I will start with apologies, please. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Parry, please.
Chair, I just want to put an apology for the local member for Hugh Williams. He's gone for a scan today, so he won't be with us.
Okay. Jock and Vow, thanks for that, and we wish him well. Okay, Peter.
Can I put apologies in for Councillor Terry Mendes? Chair, he's on holiday.
Ellie Chart.
Yeah, Oradar Pow, just to say, Councillor Cheryl Williams will be joining us in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so she's late, and if she misses the debate, I'll have to have a chat about whether she can vote.
Apologies for Councillor Gwyneth Ellis, please.
Jock and Vow, thank you. Okay. Michelle Walker, Councillor Michelle Walker.
Just to say, I'll be leaving off around about 11 o'clock this morning.
Okay, Jock and Vow, and thanks for the message. I've received that. Thank you. Okay. Are we all okay with that? No others? Robin, to go through declaring interest for any items on today's agenda. Jock and Vow, Robin.
Thank you, Chair. Oradar Pow. Members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now, or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the meeting for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal or personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is either available from the committee support staff in attendance here today or online. Thank you.
Okay, Jock and Vow, does anyone need to declare an interest, please? If you need to, can't see any hands. Okay, we're okay now. I'll move on to the next item, which is item 3, urgent matters agreed by the chair. I've had a discussion with Councillor Parry, who's just going to ask a question, which officers are aware of, and the response would be appreciated. Jock and Vow, Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to bring up the subject of local members being notified of applications in their ward. We used to get an email regular about it, and the system's changed, I believe. But it would be good for the local members to have notification of the applications in the ward, either at the same time or whatever, when the local city, town and community council has them. So Thank you. If you could respond
Okay.
to that one.
Okay, before you do, which obviously we've spoke on this. I was approached by a resident yesterday about an application in Denby I didn't know nothing about. So I think it is better if we have a process. I know you've been working on it. Can you update us, please, Jock, about?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Borodar, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the question there, Councillor Parry, in relation to consultations. As you know, we have been having a bit of difficulty with our IT system on a number of areas. But I think what we've tried to find a solution for on that is when we do send out consultations to city, town, community councils, we'll be looking to copy the local members in on that. So you'll be getting the notification at the same time as the city, town, community council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, just to confirm, no pressure. When will that start from?
We're hoping that we can start on that immediately.
Immediately. Can you minute that, please? Thanks for that. And thanks for taking the concerns on.
Okay.
And it used to work well, and I think it's a reasonable question. Jock and Val. Okay, I'll move on now to the minutes, which feels like a long time ago. It's 2 months. So I hope you can all remember. I will go through for accuracy first, pages 7 to 14, and then I will do matters arising. So for accuracy, page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14. Okay, are we all happy with those minutes, please? Proposed by Councillor James, seconder, Councillor Scott. Okay, for any matters arising from those minutes, please. Okay, I think we're all okay. I can't see any members indicating they have any issues, so I will move on now to the applications for permission, pages 5 to 7. Okay, item number 6, page 53, code 16/2022 0394 PF. The location is Helvan, Clambeda, DC, Riffin. Proposal is demolition of existing dwelling, erection of 2 number detached dwellings, alterations to vehicle access and associated works. Local member is Councillor Hugh Williams, who's apologised for not being here today. Officer recommendation is to refuse. We have a speaker for, if Mr. Robert Jones can come up, please. Jock and Val, thank you. You have 3 minutes. The clock starts sharply when you start. And Jock and Val, thank you for attending.
Good morning, Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I would like to first begin by thanking Councillor Hugh Williams for calling this application in and for supporting its consideration using common sense and local judgment. My name is Robert Jones, an architect acting on behalf of Roberts Homes, a long-established construction company with over 30 years' experience delivering housing across Denbighshire, supporting local employment and local supply chain. I'm here to provide a brief overview to assist members in reaching a balanced decision. This proposal relates to the redevelopment of Halvan, an existing residential plot within the development boundary of Llanbeda, Dyfrdwy and Clwyd. Importantly, the principle of residential development is not in dispute. Officers and consultees accept that housing is appropriate here and that 2 dwellings represents an acceptable scale and pattern of development. The application has been under consideration for almost 4 years and has involved extensive engagement with officers and consultees. At the request of the local planning authority, significant professional work has been undertaken, including a full archaeological investigation and excavation, alongside ecological surveys, highway assessments, and other technical reports. Following this prolonged process, an extension of time was agreed on the understanding that a supportive decision would be reached. It therefore came to a surprise to learn that via a third party, that a recommendation for refusal emerged at the deadline without an opportunity to respond. We respectfully suggest this context is relevant when members consider their decision. Members will be aware that the sole reason for refusal relates to sustainability and the absence of a footway along this section of the A494. Although this was noted by policy in 2022, it did not result in an objection and was not treated by officers as a concern as the application progressed. Notably, highways authorities, including Welsh Government Trunkway Trunk Road Authority support the proposal. The council's report refers to a recent refusal on a separate new development site nearby, which was refused on multiple grounds, not solely on the footpath issue. Respectfully, our proposal is different. It's a brownfield redevelopment within the village boundary with a modest net increase of one home. While members may note the recent refusal, it should not itself prejudice this application, which must be determined on its own merits given the materially different circumstances. Ultimately, Llanbedr is typical of many rural villages, with homes along roads that do not benefit from continuous footway provision. This is an accepted feature of the settlement, reflected in the development boundary and historic infill approvals. In that context, refusing a modest redevelopment solely on a footway provision would not be proportionate or consistent with historic, ongoing and future rural developments across the county. Members are therefore being asked to consider whether, in this established rural village context, the absence of a footway should outweigh all other policy support for this modest redevelopment. Thank you.
Just give the gentleman just time to sit down. Okay, members, just give the heads up to officers and the highways team. Mentioned in that speech, so can you confirm whether Welsh Government are supportive or not? Just confirm that, and the highways view on it. I think I'll go to yourself, Mike, first before I bring members in, because the highways is a strong point. Can you just give a view on it? And it was talked about, obviously there is a residential home there, but the view is the increase. But even just touch on that and the view from Welsh Government, please.
Morning. Yep, it's a trunk road, so the Welsh Government would comment on the access, and we would comment on the parking and things. But where we've gone on this is we've gone back to the previous inspector's decision on another site just up the road of housing with no footpath link to the village, which would mean it's reliant on that. So that's how this decision has been formed. But Paul may be able to explain that a little bit more.
Okay, Paul, please.
Diolch, Bore da pawb. Yeah, as Mike's just said, highways section of the Welsh Government have looked at this purely from a sort of vehicular access point of view. I think there's a conversation for us to have with Welsh Government there, as the line that officers of Denbighshire have taken is that there's a requirement at national level and local level to ensure that new sites coming forward, additional development, are well served with infrastructure to do with accessibility, so pedestrian footways, cycle paths, etc. This site, admittedly, it's only a net increase of one dwelling. It's still an additional unit of accommodation, a unit of development going on in the development boundary, and it doesn't have any sort of links with the rest of the town or means of transport other than private car. At a national level and local level, there's a drive to try and move away from dependency on the private car. So when you look at this site, the additional dwelling can only really be served practically by a private car. So it does conflict with established planning policy. I think to iterate that issue, if you look at the photograph on page 77, you can see where officers are coming from. You can see how close the walkway you've got down. You can see vehicles coming towards any pedestrian. There is nowhere for a pedestrian to stand out of the way on there. So that's where we've come from as officers in Denbighshire. We've looked at the sustainability of the location as opposed to the sort of the more technical side that Welsh Government highway officers would look at when they're literally looking at their visibility displays for vehicular accesses. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that summary. Members, please. Okay. Councillor.
Thanks.
Tomlin.
Yeah, just from something Paul said there, that the requirement is new sites coming forward. So my question is, when is a new site a new site? Because this has got a property on it. It is an established location with residential on it. So I'm just wondering if there's a nuance there in the wording that you've relied upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. No, yeah, a good, valid question that is. I think what we'd be looking at here, if we just discount the dwelling that's been knocked down and rebuilt, if they'd come in for just an additional dwelling in that location, that's a new dwelling, that's a new site coming forward. So the fact that we've got a net gain of one dwelling, that is the new site coming forward. And I think if you look in the details of the planning history on page 88, the one that the inspectors previously refused on this reason relates to the erection of a single dwelling as well. So although I can understand how people might draw a difference, and it's within your gift to do so, I think as officers' point of view, that whether it's 4 dwellings, 5 dwellings, or a single additional dwelling, the point is we should still be looking at sustainable development, and we should still be looking at highway infrastructure that allows us to move away from the dependence on the private car. Just as Mike's just pointed out to me, just to finish off, in that appeal decision, the inspector concluded that the proposed development of one dwelling would seriously compromise pedestrian safety. And I think that's what we're looking at here when you look at the photograph on page 77. Anyone wanting to walk into the village from that site, their safety is going to be severely compromised. Thank you.
So what you're saying, officers, is even though Welsh Government haven't commented, there's been an inspection in that location and the refusal reason was clear. Okay. Councillor Paddy, please. Talk about.
Yeah, can officers maybe just touch on previous application that was just across the road from there and maybe put some strength onto that of why that application was refused as well. Just that might give some sort of clarification on this one because it's on the same road.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Parry. Yeah, most of you will probably recall that a couple of months ago we dealt with an application for 4 dwellings on the opposite side of the road. That application was refused for 3 reasons. 2 of them related to the scale and the design of the proposal, but the third reason echoed what we're saying here. And I'd just point out that obviously that was a decision recommended for refusal by officers, but it was the view of the committee as well to refuse permission on that basis. And I think at that committee, members obviously, concluded that the accessibility of the site by anything other than private car wasn't acceptable in that instance. So I think we have to be clear on a consistent approach. And if members were to sort of take a different view on this, there'd have to be some clear material reasons as to why the current proposal is acceptable and the one opposite wasn't. And that is effectively where officers have got to with this. We looked at it. It'd been in the application, been in, as the public speaker mentioned, a long time. We dealt with issues to do with Welsh Government vehicular access, but in that time we had this other application that came through committee, got refused on that. It was almost impossible for us to make any other recommendation to you than refuse on that reason for accessibility. Thank you.
All right, Jock and Val. Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you. Just for clarification purposes now, so the existing property on that land is obviously not classed as a new site. It's the extra property that they want to, that the applicant has applied for, that makes it classed as a new site. So if he was just knocking the existing building down that was there and building, this wouldn't be an issue. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's the key point. Thank you.
But on that, obviously, you'd have to look at the design, etc., etc. But I think the point being made is you would drop the reason for refusal before us today. That's a good point. Councillor Tomlin, please.
Thanks for letting me come back, Chair. I'm just thinking out loud here. So if this committee were to grant this application, would we then in effect be saying we deem it to be safe for pedestrians? And if so, if it then transpired that there were to be an incident involving a pedestrian, that seemingly would reflect on us. Is that the position we would find ourselves in, please?
I think on that, we've got to give it weight. And I think you're right. It's a valid point of it. It's being raised and we need to take account of it within our decision-making process. Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's a good point because I think the first point that Paul made there is around one of consistency. I think people from the outside looking in will be looking to a planning committee that's made the decision and raised concerns about pedestrian safety and access into the village, and then a short period later changes their mind on another scheme. I think that's the key issue. What then happens, what the repercussions could be, again, in terms of any liability or anything like that, I don't think we need to necessarily worry about that, because we make decisions all the time at planning committee with the best interests. But I think you've got to go back to that initial point around consistency. And the fact that, as you correctly pointed out, the issue that we're raising here is it safe for pedestrians to leave this site and walk into the village? And the professional opinion on that is that it's not. Thank you.
Councillor Chard, please.
Yeah. My question is, has Councillor Hugh Williams sent a little report, or is it because of the short notice, not knowing it was on the agenda? But also, my question is, could an admin please send Councillor Williams another link for her to join the meeting? So I just want to know if Councillor Hugh Williams has sent a little note about what he thinks. I don't know.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
we'll send a link to Councillor Cheryl Williams, no problem. And I think it'd be best if Paul just comes in on the reason why it was
Yeah.
called.
Okay.
I've not received any communication, but I did
No.
have a question.
But I understand about the highways. Okay.
Okay, talking about.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, he called it in. We had sort of received correspondence from him a while ago now, asking for this to come to committee on the basis that he wanted to test this concept of pedestrian access. It's the same reason that he called the other application in on the opposite side of the road. So he's been consistent as well. I say unless another member's received anything from him in relation to this particular application, we don't have any sort of written views from him on that front. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just bring Councillor Paddy in, and then I will be moving on. Talking about.
Yeah, just to answer Councillor Richard's question on Hugh Williams, I think his intention was to come in today, but he had to be called to go to an appointment in hospital, so he hadn't planned anything, didn't give me anything. He just wanted the committee to decide it.
So the council has medical appointments, and we wish him well. Talking about. Thank you. Right, I'm going to bring officers in to talk us through. But we need a proposer and a seconder also. Councillor James, are you happy to?
Yeah, I'll propose that we follow officers' advice and refuse this application on the grounds that we've already heard.
Okay. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Adels Jones, Joachim, thank you. Officers.
Okay, as ever, we'll go to the vote. And again, just to be 100% clear for members on this, the proposed recommendation by officers is to refuse. That has been proposed and seconded by this planning committee. So if you are in favour of that proposition to refuse, you will say for. If you're against, you will say against. So again, the proposition is to refuse. And that's what you voted on. If you're happy to refuse the application, you say for. If you're against that proposition, you say against. Thank you, Chair.
Couldn't be clearer.
Couldn't be clearer.
Okay, Joachim, thank you. Okay.
Chair Williams has joined now. But
Okay.
Okay.
Councillor Cheryl Williams, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Obviously, you've not taken part in the debate, so I won't be calling your name out on this one.
Thank you, and apologies for my tardiness. I also couldn't get in.
That's okay, Joachim. Thank you. Councillor Blakely Walker, please.
For.
Councillor Chard, please.
For.
Councillor Edwards, please.
For.
Councillor Elton, please.
For.
Councillor Chris Evans, please.
For.
Councillor Justine Evans, please.
For.
Councillor Harlan, please.
For.
Councillor Hilders Roberts, please.
Unedbin.
Okay. Councillor Matthews, please.
For.
Metri, Councillor Metri not on. I'll ask. Okay, Councillor Paddy, please.
For.
Councillor Sandilands, please.
For.
Councillor Scott, please.
For.
Councillor Tomlin, please.
For.
Councillor Elvid Williams, please.
Right.
Myself, Councillor Young, for. And I've just tested. Councillor James, please.
For.
Okay. Councillor, sorry, I'm going to have to get the sheet checked. I do apologise. Councillor Jones, please.
Blind for.
Talking about.
So 16 for 1 against application.
Okay, so that's 16 for agreement of officer recommendation and 1 against. So that's been refused. Jock and Val, thank you. I'll let the room clear before carrying on. Okay, members, please. Members, please. 1 meeting, please, members. Thank you. That's okay. Okay. I'm going to separate you two. Okay, item number 7, page 101, code number 4320230993PF, and location is land at Maesmeyrig, Melodin Prestatin. The proposal, the development of land by the erection of 33 dwellings, including vehicle access, internal estate road, landscaping and associated works. The local member is Councillor Julie Matthews, is also committee member. The officer recommendation is to grant. We have 2 speakers today. Public speaker for Mr. Daniel Russell, and public speaker against Councillor Carol Evans, Preston Town Council. And we did have a good site meeting on Friday with myself, Councillor Harlan, Tomlin, Councillor James, Councillor Jones, Scott, and Councillor Parry, who's been missed, but we've added that on. And I will start with Daniel first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Daniel.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me, Daniel Russell, please? Okay. When you start, you get 3 minutes, and over to you. Jock and Val, thanks for attending.
Okay, 1 second. Good morning, councillors. Owing to the case officer's recommendation for approval and support from all the statutory consultees, I've sought to focus my speech today upon the areas of contention locally to try and demonstrate that the scheme has been designed and will be delivered without detriment to the local residents. Flooding and drainage, for example, is mooted as possibly the main area of concern, noting some worries locally that the scheme may exacerbate flooding due to the discharge of surface water into the land drain on Pwyllgor to the north. First of all, the drainage design has been supported by the lead local flood authority and Natural Resources Wales. Both reviewed the reports, the drainage calculations and the surface water modelling, and both agree the scheme will not exacerbate flooding locally. The proposal is to hold surface water on site and discharge it into the land drain at a greenfield runoff rate. It has been proven through our submitted drainage assessments that the development will not surcharge the land drain and will be in keeping with the current discharge rate of surface water off-site, so the concerns the site will exacerbate flooding in the area are misplaced. With the drainage conditions proposed for the planning application, as well as the requirement to secure a SAB consent, we can ensure any risk is further analysed and mitigated during the detailed design stage. With respect to access and the anticipated concerns raised by additional vehicle movements locally, I would refer the councillors to the feedback provided by the relevant statutory consultee. The local highway authorities support the scheme and agreed with the submitted transport assessment and road safety audit, where it was demonstrated that the development of the site for residential would not result in a material impact on the existing and/or future operation of the local highway network. To put it into context, the proposed scheme is expected to result in no more than 22 vehicle movements per hour, or less than 1 vehicle movement every 2 minutes. There have also been concerns raised regarding the development's impact on ecology and trees. However, Natural Resources Wales, the county ecologist and the tree officer support the scheme and the proposed environmental and landscape management measures therein. It has taken a year or more of surveys and design amendments to reach this position, but we can now demonstrate an approach and scheme which is compliant with the national and locally prescribed standards for ecological and arboricultural management and mitigation. Finally, it is worth noting that the Council's 2025 annual monitoring report showed a significant shortfall in historic housing deliveries, as well as anticipated housing deliveries for the next 2 years, with only 178 housing completions anticipated over the next 2 years across the whole borough, which is less than half the housing target. Yet we're in a position with this site whereby we have overcome all the technical criteria and scrutiny and can deliver a sustainable housing scheme on an allocated site which will help meet the mounting demand locally for housing. The scheme is compliant with planning policy and is supported by all the statutory consultees, and as such, I hope it will be supported by the councillors here today.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Joachim, thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, committee, for allowing me to speak today. Objections to this proposal are based on a number of issues, which are, briefly, traffic congestion on an already busy A547, safety concerns that increased traffic passes a children's playground, and tree destruction. However, the main objections are destruction of natural habitat and surface water flooding here, and particularly on adjacent sites which contain residential homes. This development has reduced its scale from the original 35 proposed dwellings to 33. This is to ensure the development does not encroach onto wildlife areas, including badger sets. Restrictions include no heavy machinery is allowed within 30 metres of an active set without a licence. Even if this is complied with, the disturbance during construction will inevitably adversely affect the badgers and many other species. Flora and fauna, species of bats, birds and bees will be affected adversely, all of which require enhanced protection. This site and the adjacent Pwyllgor Bont is now designated a Zone 3 flood risk area since TAN 15 was updated in March 2025. It's taken 20 years for this update, despite conclusive evidence of climate change. This now means assessments of sites are based on a risk-based development rather than a precautionary approach. Greenfield development in flood risk areas is now strongly discouraged, and NRW's flood map, which is produced to advise planning, supports the changes to TAN 15. Householders are left paying the price of inadvisable developments. The 2025 changes requires local planning authorities to notify Welsh ministers of vulnerable development on previously undeveloped land, and ministers could call the application in. This is precisely what this location is, a vulnerable development area. And just because the application falls outside the dates of this requirement, it does not take away the risk. Will Welsh Government be satisfied that the grant they are providing for this development is on such a vulnerable area? It flies in the face of their TAN 15 policy. This location has suffered 2 very recent flooding events, and Denbighshire undertook an investigation into reasons why. The culverts under several property driveways on Pwyllgor Bont cannot cope with the upland drainage during heavy rainfall. This location is downstream of areas both to the south, Melodon Village, and north, Roundwood area. Further investigation was recommended. Has this happened? I will leave the committee with this thought when deliberating your response. Is it fair that residents have to suffer the trauma of flooded properties and the resulting emotional and financial toll?
Thank you. Thanks very much, Joachim. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so as I said, it was a site meeting. I thought it was a good site meeting. Anyone from that site meeting? Councillor Scott, like to say a few words, Joachim?
I saw you looking at me, Chair. Thank you. Yes, we did visit there last Friday on a very, very cold day. We managed. We looked at the development proposals and representations received, the access and local highway network having regard to other allocated housing sites, local flooding concerns, drainage proposals, ecology, trees and issues, and affordable housing. All these issues were discussed on site with officers who were present and traffic management officers. we listen. The outcome of those will be in the rest of the meeting, Chair. But from my point of view, it was a very good meeting. I had one thing to note, that I managed to get out of Grove Road onto the A547 straight away. It was very easy. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Giacomo, thank you. Councillor Paddy, please.
Yeah, I also visited the site meeting. I'm not sure if now is because we had the information on the day. Just looking at the maps that we've got on page 111 and 113. We looked at the 113 on the day. We might have had the map on the 111 where it shows where the TPOs and the wildlife sites are shown on page 111. And my understanding was, because if you look at the wildlife sites on 111, there's a TPO to the right of the site below the main entrance road in. But if you look at the map on 113, that is where I understand the badger set is. In 113, just below the road as we come in. And then to the left of that site is where it's showing the blue area, which is the conservation of the wildlife area, is marked in blue, and there's development on that. So the map to me doesn't look consistent. I didn't see it on the day, but maybe you can just show or explain the difference of the two maps to me, how they look, because they don't match.
Good point. So
they don't match.
Don't answer that now. I'll bring it in because we've got the local member to be brought in. Okay, so the question is, are we absolutely clear, because we aren't dealing with licenses of protected animals? So I'll come back to you on that. Good point, Giacomo. Thank you. Anyone else from the site meeting? And then I'll bring in the local member. Councillor Tomlin, please. Giacomo.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was at the site meeting, and as a Prestatyn member, I know Melodon well, my old stomping ground. So I'm going to come at it from that angle, insofar as from the highways point of view, the Grove is an awfully steep street to exit onto the A547. You know, you may have had good luck on that day. I've travelled in this morning. It's bumper to bumper both ways through Melodon at 7:40 a.m. So it's a very busy road, and it has become busier through the reduction of speed to 20 miles an hour. So of course everything's much more close together travelling through. It's very, very difficult to get out, and it is a steep incline. So that concerns me greatly. That's not going to improve in any way. Nothing can be done to that. Also, just thinking aloud, the entrance to Maes Murig veers off to the right where the children's play park is. Now, every child on that large area of estate that's probably the majority of houses in Melodon has to manoeuvre on foot to the park through that awkward junction there, and or Dogleg Bend. And I just feel that the added number of traffic vehicles there would exacerbate a danger to them in trying to cross to that park. It's Melodon Park. It's where all the kids go, and they have to cross that road on foot to get there. So that troubles me in adding more vehicles along there. I'm interested in, and I accept that it's difficult to show in photographs. We did see it slightly on the visit. The height difference between the top of the Grove and the bottom of this proposed new development site, insofar as I would not say that's an easy pedestrian route, and certainly not an easy route for anyone disabled. That's quite a height. And I'm wondering if we have those numbers and if that would be deemed acceptable. And I know it's been said that obviously Maes Murig, the part that exists now, people travel up there, but that was built then under those rules. That we're talking about the rules that apply to safe pedestrian routes now, and that's, you have to travel to the top of the Grove to get access to public transport or local conveniences. So that troubles me. The photographs just don't show how deep the slope to how much further down the site at the bottom of Maes Murig this site is compared to Maes Murig that is now. There's quite a drop, so it goes much further down, and it's in the dip, as has been said, between Roundwood and the village of Melodon. It is in a dip. The destruction of wildlife really bothers me. That is, it's not just a field, and that would be bad enough. It is a woodland habitat. It's crammed with creatures, and to destruct that, to use Councillor Evans' words, would be a travesty, to my mind. The other point I'd like to raise that hasn't been mentioned, but I'm sure it'll come out, and I don't need it answered straight away, is we could do with a full description of the 100% affordable scenario that goes against policy. Why would that be allowed? And the demand for that type of property, if the housing people could explain that, and who, should it go ahead, would those properties be allocated to? Because I know that's something that residents often mention. And that's it for now. Thank you, Chair.
Now, as I say, if officers just give a think about that, I will bring in the local member now, Councillor Julie Matthews. Jochavo, thanks for attending, and it was good to see you on Friday, and hope you're well.
Diolch, Chair, Borodar, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Many thanks to Councillor Evans and Councillor Tomlin and Councillor Parry. You've actually raised quite a few of the issues I was going to raise, so I won't go through them again for duplication, but I just want to draw committee's attention to a planning and environment decision, Wales decision in 2022 regarding an adjacent potential development site, which was Mindale, which is adjacent to this potential. It actually sits slightly northwest of Maesmeurig. And in that report, it specifically mentioned Pwyllgor within that decision being at significant risk of flooding downstream of the proposed development site. And as such, those reasons highlighted by that PEDU should apply in this case because of its close proximity to it. I don't know if committee is aware, but a lot of the residents on Pwyllgor can no longer get insurance because of the flood risks. And, you know, for me, I feel I am concerned if we're willing to grant planning permission to a site with adjacent properties that cannot get insurance, what will be the impact on these new properties? Would they be able to get insurance in the future as well? We have mentioned about Melodon. It is in a significant dip, this site. Locally, it's known as the Melodon Sump. Everybody sees it as a bog. Councillor Tomlin has touched on the fact that there's a lot of flora and fauna there. It's known for its wildlife. Water just accumulates there and sits on that site. And I'm not actually, you know, whenever there's inclement weather, there's been a significant amount of rain the past couple of days. It's probably all boggy there. I know you've talked about within the late reps about some sort of installation of a swale, but it says it may offer some flood alleviation. It doesn't say it definitely will. And it's not just that site, it's the adjacent site as well that I'm concerned about. I think I'll leave it there for now. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, we've got a lot to do with today. I'm going to go through it methodically and slowly. So I will bring in the other councillors. I'm just going to bring in Paul, just to introduce the team. We've got some new people here, just their roles, and then we can touch on where we're going, and then we'll take further questions from Councillor Evans and Councillor Harland. So Paul, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the two speakers that we've had have outlined the main issues and the main concerns, and we as officers obviously clearly understand the local concerns in relation to the development site. The first thing I'd say is obviously you need to have to have regard in the first instance to the adopted local development plan. So I'll always bring you back to that initially in relation to what your current plan says, and it's an allocated housing site. So I'll just start with that. We've made a note of a lot of the points that have been raised and the questions, and that's why we've brought in other specialists to the planning committee today to sort of assist members in that determination. Obviously, you know Mike from a highways perspective. He'll answer any questions and queries in relation to site access, pedestrian movements, gradient, all that type of thing. I think is in Mike's gift. We've also got Sue Lewis with us, who is on our housing team. So she deals directly with the issues of mixes of houses, waiting lists, affordable housing. So we'll bring Sue in to talk a little bit around the point that Councillor Tomlin made there around the affordable housing. We've also got Catherine with us today, who's a new officer who will probably introduce herself better in terms of her official title, in terms of, but it's all to do with flood risk and drainage. So Catherine's here to assist us on that. So I just thought I'd want to introduce the officers who are specialists in the particular areas, refer you back to the fact that it is an allocated site, and there's quite a bit of information on your late sheets as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm not going to fall out with you, but the site next door was allocated and got refused by the inspector. So we're here for the debate and we'll touch on all that, so that's fine. So are we going to go to the questions, or do you want to take a few more, or do you want to answer the ones which have come already? Officers.
We're happy to answer the questions that have come up now, and then we'll go back for a round of further ones.
So I'll bring I'll let you.
No, I think looking in order, Councillor Parry raised that initial query around the site and the red line application site, the wildlife areas, etc. I think you're right to point out the documents within the main report there, and I think the easiest maps to go to are the OS map extracts, which shows the red line application site, and then beneath that you've got the development proposal, which shows the housing layout within that. So there seems to be two key areas, Councillor Parry. One is the sort of wildlife site area that actually sits outside the development boundary land, where we've actually got a plan which shows developable area and the land that sits outside that. So that's the sort of designated wildlife area. The other area that you would highlight there is within the development sites within the red line area, but as you can see on the plan there where the housing layout is, you've got the road that comes in. The area on the sort of right hand side of that map is the area that's obviously been left as undeveloped, and that's the area I think where the badger set is. So that's the area that there will be no housing development going within that proximity of that. So I just wanted to clear up that issue in relation to the...
So just on that, that's clear. You okay with that? So can you just, while we're on that, just touch how we protect and the body involved with enforcing that, please? So we're all clear.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think it goes back to some of the point we raised at the site meeting, actually, in relation to we did put tree preservation orders onto this site. So there was some work that was done some years ago in relation to protection of the ecology and biodiversity and the trees on the site. Any site that you're dealing with that might have protected species on, such as badgers, Natural Resources Wales have to issue a licence for any work that goes on within proximity of badger sets and other protected species. So there is a licensable process that goes on there outside of the planning process. Obviously, what we need to do as a planning committee and as a planning assessment, the first thing that we would look to do is consult with Natural Resources Wales on this scheme, and they will look at all the relevant issues in relation to ecology and biodiversity, as well as drainage and flood risk, etc., which we'll come on to in a moment. But there is no objection from Natural Resources Wales in terms of the proposal that's before you in relation to ecology and biodiversity. And likewise, your own county ecologist has also raised no objection to this. But we can't get involved in the outside licensing process. That's for Natural Resources Wales to do.
But we will make the developer aware of their legal responsibilities as part of our communication. And that's the professional approach. I hear what you're saying. There's a commitment to that.
That would always be on the certificate of decision. We flag up any other required legislative
carry on. Yeah, thanks for that.
So that's fine. The other couple of comments that were made there by Councillor Tomlin, I think that probably would be beneficial for me to defer to other officers. So I might start with Mike there in relation to the highway access and the gradients, please. Thank you.
Morning. I can understand the local concerns. The proposal is for 10 number 1-bed dwellings, 9 number 2-bed dwellings and 16 3-bed dwellings. There have been comments made regarding the capacity of the junction, Pwyllgor and the Grove. I would draw your attention to a previous planning appeal for 133 dwellings using this junction, the Grove, the inspector concluded that this would not have an unacceptable negative impact on highway safety and capacity. This application is for 33 dwellings using that same junction, which is a considerable reduction. So we can't see any reason there to try and how you could refuse that on capacity grounds for this application. Mice Maiding is of a generally 5.5 metres carriageway width with footways. Some on-site parking is available for other houses and also garage parking. It's estimated that traffic from the development would be at peak times of 22 vehicles per hour, which is considerably low for a development. The internal estate road meets Denbighshire standards. That includes gradients. We will be looking to adopt this road, and a stage 1 safety audit has been carried out. A stage 2 safety audit would be carried out at the design stage, and this looks at all implications for safety and gradients and DDA compliance. Having regard to all the information submitted, it is not considered there be any reason to refuse this application that could be defended at any appeal on highway grounds, taking all the information into account. I think there was something else raised about a play park and access to that. There's existing footways in the area. We're not aware of any accidents in the area, and we don't consider this development would contribute to any further safety implications for pedestrians in the area. Thank you.
Just on that, is there any commuted sums on the site, please?
We would, when we look at adopting a road, we would sign a legal agreement with them with a bond to finish the road if anything happened, and we would look at commuted sums for the future maintenance of drainage systems and any alternative highway features as part of any legal agreements.
Okay, Giacomo, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Just moving on, I think in terms of the issues, Mike's covering all the highway stuff. I think it might be opportune now to bring in Sue in relation to some of the housing questions raised there from an affordable housing perspective and the mix and who gets the houses. Thank you, Sue.
Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the cold. I had a bit under the weather, but I'm still here. Just to let you know that in terms of the kind of Melodon Prestatyn, that's one of the highest housing needs areas actually in Denbighshire at the moment. The mix on the site, the mixture of kind of 1-bedroom flats, 2-bedroom houses and 3-bedroom houses really reflects that kind of huge demand for housing that is actually in Denbighshire at the moment. In terms of the 100%, I think the 100% is needed because of the kind of there's the legal agreements and legal advice things in terms of bringing forward the site. We'd only actually seek, because it's an allocated site, we'd only actually seek 10%, but Welsh Government we've actually secured some provisional funding with Welsh Government, and they have actually assessed the site and they're happy to take it forward. We have actually included, I think, in the late representations, we've an email from North Wales Housing that have actually said that they will bring the forward at 100%, and also Welsh Government, if they do, would they support the scheme, they actually have put an actual second charge on the actual site as well. In terms of who it will be allocated to, it will obviously be allocated to people with local connections, and it will within the allocation policies for both for the social rented element and for the intermediate rented as well.
No, I think what we'll do now, Chair, if that's okay. Thanks for that, Sue. Yeah. There might be some more questions on both of these issues, really, highways and the housing scheme. I think it might be opportune now, because I think it was raised by Councillor Julie Matthews as well in relation to Mindale and the flood risk and the drainage, to bring Catherine in just to sort of comment on what's been proposed on that, and then we'll take more questions on those three areas.
So just on that, you've heard the question and welcome. Yeah, it's good to see you. We look forward to the committee working with you. So my question on top of the question is, obviously the site close to this was refused on flooding grounds. So this committee has a duty care to ask yourself, is it okay? And why has that changed? So it was refused on them grounds. Why do you think it's okay? If you can touch on that, Giacomo, thank you.
Yeah, so Bora Darren, good morning everyone. So I'm Catherine Hughes. I'm the new manager of the Lead Local Flood Authority team and the SUDS approving body by extension of that. So we've sort of, been on a bit of a journey with this application, and I think it's only fair to reflect that and to thank the developer for all the information that they have submitted to the Lead Local Flood Authority in terms of this application. I know one of the speakers raised sort of the TAN 15 requirement. I think it's very important to note that this application was assessed on Technical Advice Note 15/2004 because it was submitted to the authority before the implementation of the 2025 TAN 15 in March last year. As a result, the development was assessed on the development advice map and not the flood map for planning. We note that part of that planning boundary on the development advice map did contain sort of a partial flood zone B and flood zone C2 area, and in terms of where that sits on the flood map for planning, if that application were to come in today, there is partial flood zone 2 and flood zone 3 present on the site. However, it's really important to note that the highly vulnerable development classification applied to this housing all sit outside of that flood zone. So none of this development is within any of those flood zones. What that does mean is we then assess the impact of that off-site. So if none of that development is in a flood zone, there's no flood defences proposed for this development, that does not exacerbate flooding off-site because it doesn't propose to move water anywhere off-site. Also within that development area, and since the introduction of Schedule 3 of the Flood and Water Management Act 2010 in 2019, which is the SUD's approving body process, all surface water generated by the site is required to be attenuated and discharged at Greenfield runoff rate. I will say that the speaker for the proposal did actually do themselves a bit of a disservice there. They said they will discharge at Greenfield runoff rate. It's actually been agreed with the Lead Local Flood Authority that the development will discharge it below its Greenfield runoff rate at a limited discharge rate, which is the lowest that we can ask for within the SUD's approving body process. So it's about a quarter of essentially what should be generated by the site will be discharged towards the nearest surface water body. A note in regards to the Section 19 report, which was rightly raised by the speaker against the development, that surface water affecting the existing properties on Pwyllgor Bont was raised. In terms of that, what we did raise in our first response to planning, that sort of issue had been highlighted by the Lead Local Flood Authority in terms of its investigation into the reason why those properties flooded in Storm Babette. What the developer did on the back of that, which is, I appreciate this might get a bit technical, so if I do sort of over-egg it, please do interrupt me. They generated a catchment area looking at all the surrounding area, figured out how much rain typically falls on that in the design event, which for anything we do as a Lead Local Flood Authority is the 1 in 100 year storm event plus an additional uplift for climate change, which we set at 40%. They found that the wider existing development above Pwyllgor Bont was not generating the surface water, but that the surface water was generated on site, which sort of evidences that argument that was raised that the site is quite boggy. So in terms of that surface water generation is then considered within the SUD's approving body process. And I just refer members to the clarification note that was provided in response to the Lead Local Flood Authority's concerns regarding the site. And that's that site levels have been designed so that there is a positive gradient from the residential units to the access road in the centre to direct surface water away from the proposed residential units. Sorry, I've just lost my point. I do apologise. So essentially what this means is that all of the surface water generated by the site will be directed into the access road, which then is attached to the surface water drainage system. So none of that water will be allowed to leave the site, which is the sort of the reason why the adjacent site was refused by the planning inspectorate. So that water will then, in sort of those larger storm events that we are increasingly seeing, that water will sit within the access road for the site and not at significant depths enough to make it dangerous for the users of the site. But that means that there will be no foreseeable impact on the residents of Pwyllgor Bont.
So in summary, you believe it will be in a better situation or worse with the new drainage and management system?
Yes, so we do believe that the situation following the development will be the same, if not better.
Okay, Giacomo, thank you.
I think we will be happy to take any more questions.
I'm going to go Councillor Evans, then Councillor Harland. Giacomo.
Thank you, Chair. Just something, and echo what Andrew and Julie said, but also the local community council member. I don't like the loss of wildlife. I think we need to look at that. But the flooding, we have to learn by our mistakes, and I thank you for your comments about the 1 in 1,000 years events. But if we look at what happened in Ruthin a few years ago and what happened in St Asaph, when your kitchen is floating down towards the roundabout, it's no consolation. We've got a duty of care as a planning committee. Just if we look at our last planning application about residents walking on roads that haven't got footpaths, I think we've got a commitment to residents for flooding. And lastly, I don't like the comment of no comment of North Wales Police. We've got road safety issues. I know Mike is covered with the council, but I think North Wales Police should have more input on this because, like Andrew says, the road is dangerous to come out on. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, it's 1 in 100 years.
1 in 100, same thing.
We won't be there. Okay. Councillor Harlan, please, who was on the site meeting. Good to see you, John. Joking about.
The old chair, yeah, good to see you. You all. Yes, as you say, I attended the site meeting, and I learnt at that meeting that, and it is relevant, that a large amount of vegetation and trees were removed on acquisition of the land. Now they want to remove a further 10 trees, approximately. I'd just like to know, firstly, whether any TPO trees are involved in that were TPO'd after the event of removal of vegetation initially. And also, I mean, should we approve this, who will monitor the flow rate from the new development? Who will actually control that? Have we building control officers who go around regularly to monitor these sorts of things to make sure that the builders are actually doing what they guaranteed, so to speak? Diolch.
Think developers do themselves any favours when you take trees down before it comes before us, and I don't know why they do it. But what I will say is officers went straight on site and did CPOs, so that's good. So if you can answer the one on the trees and the question of we're saying it work, who checks it in any order? Thanks, John.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just touching on the two members there in terms of the comments. Again, Councillor Chris Evans had raised some concerns in terms of the potential loss of wildlife. But again, I'll highlight some of the stuff that's within the report there in terms of what NRW and our own county ecologists are obviously supportive of the proposal. So that's key. North Wales Police, obviously we consult North Wales Police on a number of issues really, one of which is also around antisocial behaviour and designing out crime, etc. So they don't necessarily comment on the highway safety aspect, but we will look for accident data through our own highways department, so Mike can touch on that a little bit. Again, going to Councillor Harlan's points there that were raised, I think the relevant paragraph in your main report is on page 167 there in relation to trees. There is going to be the loss of a couple of trees there. I think it's shown in G1 for forming of the access, and W1 is also shown to be removed, but all trees are going to be replaced on a 3-to-1 ratio basis, and our own tree officer has been, his job is to sort of look at specifically trees and their protection and development sites. They've got no objection to that, and obviously there won't be any loss of any woodland habitat. So I'd point you to paragraph 4.2.6 in the main report that covers all the ecology and tree issues on there. I think I'd just want to then touch on the control of the development that Councillor Harland had raised in terms of who checks, and I'll bring Catherine back in on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point that Councillor Harland's raised, of who actually enforces this, and the answer will be the SUDS approving body. So at the moment we have had pre-application advice from the developer, and we will obviously then take that to a full SAB application, obviously following the decision today. In terms of what we ask a developer for is when they're both constructing and when they finish the development, we ask them for site inspections, of which we assess the development against the approved plans. So, you know, we will be seen to be chucking tape measures down manholes because that's how we do it. And the enforcement of that going forwards would be also the SUDS approving body. So as part of the SAB process, might be straying a bit here, so Paul might tell me off. You know, we have a maintenance plan submitted as that, and that has to be adhered to once the development has been constructed, and it's in the hands of whoever comes after the developer, which in this case will the development, because it's social housing, it will remain with the social housing landlord, RSL, to maintain that development going forward. So we foresee that, you know, it's not going to be a case of this will be built and then it'll be walked away. It will be maintained and looked after, and therefore that flow rate will be constrained to its limited discharge. Obviously, if any problems were noted, we'd advise residents in the future to get in touch with the local flood authority, and that would be then enforced through ourselves. I think that has answered the question, but
okay. What else? Okay, Gareth Sandilands, please. Councillor Gareth Sandilands.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Well, thank you, Catherine. You've explained wisely about this application and what your thoughts are. However, I am still not happy given the high standards that we require under the latest legislation and the proposed legislation where we must increase flooding prevention for all the residents, not just the current residents, but the ones that will be moving into these houses. I'll raise a few points of where the summary I think we are at this moment in time. You know, it would significantly worsen the A547, which has had some really serious accidents over the last 10 years. And this will only exaggerate it. You know, we've talked about biodiversity. This is the natural biodiversity, the sump of Melidon. You know, it's been described, you know, this almost goes to a swamp-like atmosphere, you know, after flooding, you know, and you're expecting to build new houses on it. It's unbelievable. You know, locally, I've delivered leaflets, I've canvassed the houses there, and they are built on verticals. You know, they are horrible to get to. You know, they predicted these when the housing was built all around there that there will be flooding, and still some of these houses are very susceptible to it. Just going back to biodiversity, Cofnog have stated several times that there is wildlife recorded on their database. We must, you know, look at the conflict of what we've got to. Local knowledge is key here, and we're not just doing, you know, we're not just sharpening our pitchforks. We're just stating the facts that flooding and highways and the ecology of the whole situation is unacceptable for new housing. So I'd just like to leave it there at the moment in time, and I will probably come back later. But thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I just come in because your statement is relevant, and I just want it clarifying. So even though it was on the old flood regs, does it or does it not comply with the new regs? And I just want to clarify, and it's not my position. I just want that because it's a fair point. We just clarify that, so it feels like it's not up to date, but I think that clarification would be good for us.
yeah, I think it's a good point to cover. In terms of sort of where we sit with the new TAM 15, obviously we'd look at the flood map for planning, as I mentioned earlier, and all of the development is outside that area. I suppose there's that added sort of comfort for me as the local flood authority that obviously this development will have to go through the SUDS approving body process, and that, you know, if there's any further sort of water-based issues that we foresee, that can be dealt with within that that process. Although I do appreciate that that process is not open to members at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to, Robin, sorry to bring you in short notice. So does that sound reasonable from the flood risk management, that we're dealing with the old policies, but Natural Resources Wales seem okay and officers do, but does that sound reasonable to you? Just that fresh comment off you would be helpful.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think from what I understand from what Catherine said, it's been assessed against the old TAN 15 and found generally compliant. Excuse me. And it's also been considered that it would be compliant with the new TAN 15 as well. So if that's the case, then that seems eminently reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, Jochen, thank you. And I'll bring in Councillor Jones, please. Thank you.
Thank you. This is quite a difficult one, isn't it, really? Because I very much appreciate and I can and acknowledge and understand the local perspective on this, and why those perspectives would are being offered up as concerns, as valid concerns. However, I'm a little bit concerned that our role here as a planning committee is to look at the facts and to look at the mitigations and to look at the expert advice that we've been given to look at whether the issues that have been raised can be supported or can be mitigated against, and how that would be done. What I'm hearing is from yourself, Catherine, that a lot here that you said that this would, in your opinion, be equal or a betterment from the current situation. So I just wanted to explore that a little bit further. You mentioned a little bit more about that the water runoff would go into the roads within the site. Is it your opinion also that it's a betterment for the surrounding sites as well, and for the Pwyllgor and the things that we've seen from the surrounding area? So that's one point, really. The other point was the relevance of the appeal that was for the adjacent site. You've referenced already about the highways, and that wasn't something that the appeal inspector felt that was why he supported that as being an issue. I too was able to leave this site quite easily on that day. I understand that there are certain periods of the day, as we all do, when it's busier, when people are going to work or whatever. But the time that we were leaving, I didn't find it an issue. So it's just to understand the relevance of the appeal process that was on the adjacent site. It was largely to do with the flooding, but are the facts that we're beginning today, would that make us more comfortable that that is mitigating against those issues that were raised there that would not be relevant on this site? So it's just to understand that, because I'm mindful that should we go to propose to refuse this, contrary to what you've outlined for us, we would need to give in a concrete reason for doing so, wouldn't we? So it's just to understand that and what that could lead to, really. My other question was around the local housing, the assessment of local housing need. I think it is relevant here, although, it's not. We do have to look at the flooding issue as a paramount importance on this site, but I think it is also of relevance that the Welsh Government have indicated, is that what you said, that they have indicated of an approval on this? Can you give me an assessment of that, whether they have looked at the nature of the site, the issues surrounding the site? Would that be part of that assessment, or are they just looking at it from a purely housing need? Because I can see that how this would very much match the housing need that's on that assessment, and that this area, the Prestatyn area, very much do need to find suitable sites for that. So it's just to clarify that.
Thank you for that. Paul, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, really good point. And obviously we're having a good debate, and we need to on this, because as you say, that there's a lot of local information, a lot of local knowledge that is being brought to bear here. But ultimately, as a planning committee, we're going to have to make a decision based on facts that we can defend effectively. So I think the starting point for that is that, going back to your very end point in relation to the housing issue, it's an allocated site, so I would imagine Welsh Government would look at that in terms of, you know, is it feasible to develop housing in this particular location. Sue's given us the information there in relation to Rhyl and Prestatyn being the areas of the county in the most need in terms of housing. She's outlined that this particular scheme for 33 houses is going to meet that in terms of the mix, and that it'll be the local people that are on the list that will get that housing. So I think the Welsh Government, in terms of the department that we're talking about, in terms of offering the social housing grant and the money that enables the development to go ahead, they probably wouldn't have gone into the precise detail around that Catherine's given you in relation to the flooding, but they would certainly see it as an allocated site within our local development plan and plan for it on that basis. I think just bringing us back to the points that were also raised by Councillor Jones there in terms of the key issues that we've been debating today. Firstly, on the highway issue, I suppose, again, if there wasn't a previous appeal on the nearby site for 130 odd houses in terms of the highway network and the ability of that highway network to cope with additional traffic and the routes that were taken, you know, that was quite a clear conclusion on that. The highway issues were deemed acceptable for that level of housing, and this is obviously significantly lower. So I think members need to have regard to that in terms of looking at the highway issues and the controls that we're going to be putting on it anyway in terms of the estate road and the drainage that adds to that. I think one of the key issues, though, again, trying to hone in for members to think about where we're going to go with this particular application, is the issue of flood risk and drainage. Because on the Mindale site, that was the single issue that the inspector raised concerns about, and it was to do with it. They hadn't justified how the runoff rate from that particular site wasn't going to exacerbate problems downstream or on adjacent sites. What evidence you've got on this particular proposal and what Catherine's outlined to you is that this is being controlled and it will potentially produce that betterment in terms of the holding of the water on this site. So if no development took place on this site and there was additional storm events or rain, then Pwyllgor Bont is vulnerable. We've got an opportunity here paid for by the developer to actually deal with that. So I think often in planning committee, we have these issues, these singular issues about material considerations. And there will be an element of interpretation and debate about that, and also local knowledge would come into play. I think what we're hearing today on the drainage and the flood risk issue is that if you're going to go against that, you're almost making matters worse for the local area, because we've got the opportunity to make it better. So I just wanted to sort of raise that point, and I think they are key issues that we need to keep debating, but I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really, really useful, actually, because I think that is the crux of it. I am aware of a similar setup about the tank and the mitigation and the runoff in my own ward, which has made a significant difference and improved the situation in that area. And I believe that there are some in other areas around the authority as well. So I think that's really something we need to be really careful about, considering that we're not losing an opportunity to improve the situation for the, for the residents.
Okay, talking about, I'm going to let officers come in very quickly, and then I'm going to go to the local member, and then we do need to. Okay, kind of. Okay, I'll bring in the officer. Is that okay? Or is it similar to? Okay, I'll bring in Councillor Parry. Talking about.
Yeah, just one before that though, with the outside bodies, as in North Wales Police, I think it's almost rude that they don't comment on it. They'd be quick enough. We have to contribute to them from our rates for the money, for the fire, police and whatever. So for them not to comment at all, I think we maybe should feed that back to them. Where they have got no concerns, that's fine. No comment is not the same answer. That's just my point on that one. Just, Catherine, thanks, and it's good to have you here today. I'm going to ask, it's one question I'll lead into three really, but one of them on contamination of and we've had this subject going on in the council this week, and we've got Melodon Disaffair where we have sort of potential lead problems there. So if we've got flooding and washing going into the water there, and then I believe that once this site is set up, a DCC going to be adopting the flooding of this one, so that management of that goes on long term. So if there's contamination, DCC are adopting it, who's the liability with if we've got contamination going from our water flow to somewhere else? And are we, because it's a site that's could be problematic if it's not serviced, are we sure that we've got the manpower or the person power to service this flooded area in the event of something going wrong? Thank you. That's my question.
And just on that, the funding for them processes moving forward, which I think the bond, but it's good to clarify them points.
Yeah, thank you for that, councillors. I think that's actually really good questions. So I'll just touch on Councillor Jones's point of would this be a betterment? I will start this by saying that the SAB process doesn't actually require a development. It basically requires same. What the developer has done, and this has been really encouraging to see from the point of view of the lead local flood authority, is they have approached us about that betterment. So they've done a lot of modelling, considered rainfall, soil types, topography, to sort of look at how water gets on that site, what parts of that site generate the water, and where that can go. And what I think we've actually got with a drainage strategy here, which I don't think I've kind of stated clearly enough to this point, is you're almost, by having a drainage system on that site, collecting the water and diverting it round the back of the properties that have been affected by that surface water flooding in the past. I appreciate here that Pwyllgor is affected by two types of flooding, so that's the surface water flooding and the flooding from the main river. We as an authority are not really in a position to do anything about that. That would be left to Natural Resources Wales. I know we as a lead local flood authority are in conversation with Natural Resources Wales about that flooding, and we're not walking away from that. We know there's an issue there, and we want to help those residents, and I think our sympathies are very much with them, because flooding is not nice. I think in terms of the appeal on the site next door, I think in my mind a lot of that appeal information and what was being raised at that appeal would have been solved by that appeal site having to go through the SUDS approving body process. We look at all of those sort of elements of discharge rate. Is that appropriate? Are there enough SUDS features on site to manage that water? Are there opportunities to lose water that would have been discharged to the main river within the site through water reuse, infiltration, things like that? Unfortunately, for the site that we're currently looking at, the developer has gone through what we call our discharge hierarchy, so they have to push as much water as they can to higher levels of the hierarchy before a discharge to water body. Unfortunately, on this site it wasn't feasible, and as has been mentioned, with the ground conditions on site being quite wet and quite boggy, they couldn't sort of push anything towards infiltration, because obviously then the drainage strategy wouldn't have worked. So we do feel that this controlled, attenuated approach to the drainage with that severely limited discharge, which is the lowest discharge we can ask for, will provide similar, if not a better situation. I won't promise a better situation, because we can appreciate that we're living in a changing climate, and we do have to take that into consideration. A point was raised regarding contamination. Again, unfortunately, that's something that will be dealt with within the SUDS approving body process. So we require that all new sites have sort of a neutral water quality, if not a better water quality, when they discharge to the watercourse. So there's no contamination that we're aware of on site from the pre-application process for the SAB. So we're pretty confident that the water that is generated by that site, and taking into account its post-development scenario, that will be treated by the SUDS that are provided on site, and therefore they should be no detriment towards the receiving body, which is obviously the water body to the north of the development site. I think the questions around adoption and the resources is something that we're still actively working on, unfortunately. Because this site is social housing, what we normally have is the SAB would not adopt sites that we call single curtilage. So if they've got one owner as a 100% social housing site we wouldn't adopt that. We'd ask the developer to set up some form of management to that. So be that a management company, or be that the actual social housing RSL maintaining it themselves via the rent rates that they charge. So it's not something that's set in stone at the moment of who's going to be taking on the maintenance of that site, and I do appreciate that is a consideration, but it's a SAB consideration in my mind, not a planning consideration, and I don't know if Paul will correct me on that. In terms of the resources, obviously we have got a growing flood team. I am delighted to announce. So obviously I've been appointed. So we've had another officer appointed within the last 6 months. So we have got 3 officers in the flood team that, we're looking at these enforcement issues. And I think if that's, something that members want us to take away and sort of explore that a bit more, then that is something that we're really willing to look at and we actually welcome input on. So I know I can't give a concrete assurance sat here today, but I think, we'd really appreciate members feeding into what that process looks like and if we could, push more resource to that. But that is not something that obviously we can have a chat about today, unfortunately.
Councillor Tomlin, very quickly before the final speaker is going to be
Very
local member.
quickly, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Just on the Storm Babet investigation report, what was the had this application not come along and the land was just there, what was the outcome of that insofar as what should be done to that area to avoid that happening again anyway in that area, please?
Okay, yeah, so I think the Section 19 report is it's a very important document for us as a lead local flood authority. That for us is an identification of some element of quite severe flooding that has impacted on people. So what we do with the Section 19 report is we investigate the causes of the flooding. We, go and annoy the other risk management authorities. So just for a bit of context, they are your Highways Authority, Natural Resources Wales, Welsh Water, your Canal and Rivers Trust in those instances. And, we make recommendations. So there's no concrete conclusion to those recommendations within that report, but they are things we've taken away, and we have explored further work at Pwyllgor. Unfortunately, we haven't had funding from that yet because we are reliant on funding from Welsh Government. But that is within our scheme. It will be within our flood risk management strategy when that eventually makes its way out into the world. So we are trying to pursue funding opportunities to explore that flood risk more and explore what we can do with that flood risk. We know that NRW are also looking at the situation around Pwyllgor. I don't have any concrete sort of plans on their behalf, and I wouldn't wish to bring them in front of you on their behalf either, because I always think that unfortunately NRW are best placed to talk about NRW's plans. So I hope that answers the question, Councillor, but I'm more than happy to come back if not.
It was just basically, so no matter what, with or without that development, there are ongoing plans to try and alleviate the flooding in that area anyway.
Yeah, there are ongoing plans. Unfortunately, because the site is allocated in the LDP as housing land, we wouldn't be able to pursue that land for flood alleviation. So if this development did not go through, we still wouldn't be able to use that land.
Thank you.
Is it a positive or negative in officers' view if it does go through? Because it's a really good point from purely on the flood, because there's obviously funding being sought, that's not come. So where does it leave us, in your professional opinion?
Yeah, I think in my professional opinion, and again, Robin might want to come in from a legal perspective here, trying to guide a planning committee on how to make their decision on this. I think purely on the drainage issue, from what we're hearing, it does feel to me like we've got a one-off opportunity via a developer to try and solve a problem that the planning committee either chooses to take or not take. That's how I see it. Again, if members disagree with that and we have a reason for refusal on the potential impact of this development on flood risk and drainage, how do you defend that at an appeal when a barrister's looking at you in the eye to say, where's your evidence that this is going to create this problem? So I think that's how I've got to, as your officer explaining to a planning committee where we're on drainage, I think we're quite clear on that. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to move on now. Final speaker is going to be local member Councillor Julie Matthews. Thank you for being so patient, Julie. Over to you. Jock and vote.
Diolch, Chair. Yeah. I think we have had a really good debate this morning over this site, but to be honest, personally, I'm still not convinced with regards to the drainage arguments. I still feel there's still a potential for flooding. there has been an acknowledgement there could be the same impact on Pwyllgor despite this being this development being put on the site. I don't think that's acceptable unless we can really say that the residents of Pwyllgor will benefit from this definitively. I don't think we can proceed with this. I did make a point regarding house insurance for residents of Pwyllgor. How will that impact on this site and the potential residents moving into there in terms of being able to get house insurance? And just to another point to think about, the new Town 15, Pwyllgor will be in Zone 3. This site will be adjacent to that. There's still, you can't dictate where water goes, it will go wherever it wants. We have acknowledged that there will be, there is wetter, warmer winters, there's going to be more storms, and I still think this site is vulnerable. I do understand the housing needs, but I just think it would be irresponsible to build on this site, given the impact of flooding and the drainage. I still don't think that has been resolved satisfactorily. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Okay, been a really good debate, and I think we all appreciate it's a difficult one. Thank you, officers and members. Really good questions. I need some proposals. Councillor James, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And can I just thank everybody for the really good debate. The reports that we've had are absolutely second to none, as always. So thank the officers and those involved with producing these reports. I definitely take on board what the local member says about the risk. Without actually having this development, there's still going to be a risk at Pwyllgor anyway. This gives us the opportunity and the developers to actually do something that likely will improve further down the stream, as they say, and excuse the pun. But in terms of that, we need the housing. It's a really good opportunity. This is where the demand is. As I say, it's extremely difficult. We've heard all the arguments. I'm going to be a little bit flippant just for a minute and say, in comment to Councillor Evans's view, roads aren't dangerous. It's the people who use the roads that make them dangerous. Okay. And my experiences this morning of driving in at half past 7 this morning along that bypass. I know you're going to.
I'm going to say, let's not go there. We can all have a view. We can all have a view. What I need is.
What I'm going to say to you now is that I would like to propose that, according to officers' recommendation, that we grant this development.
Okay, Jochen, thank you. We've all had a good debate, so
we have.
Let's keep.
Been very good. Excellent.
We're all friends here. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Scott, please. Okay, I'm going to go to the vote. Can you be absolutely clear if you can, please? I believe one councillor's gone, so okay. I think everyone else is here still. So proceed.
Just before we go to the vote, I think that we need to have regard to the vote itself. So obviously, it's proposed to be granted by the officers, and it's been proposed and seconded for that at planning committee. If the vote then goes against that, we'll have to come back for a vote with the reasons in relation to that. So we'll go with the first vote first. So this is a recommendation to grant. It's been proposed and seconded. If you're in favour of that proposition, you will say for. If you're against, you will say against. Thank you.
Okay, Chair. I'm just going to double check. I think Michelle has left. Is that? I can't do sorry. Michelle Blakely Walker has gone. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Chard, please.
Against.
Councillor Edwards, please.
Against.
Councillor Elson, please.
For.
Councillor Chris Evans, please. Councillor Justine Evans, please.
Against.
Councillor Harlan, please.
Against.
Councillor Hilders Roberts, please.
An Elbin.
Councillor James, please.
Abide.
Councillor Dellis-Jones, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Matthews, please.
Against.
Councillor Parry, please. Councillor Sandilands, please.
Against.
Councillor Scott, please.
For.
Councillor Tomlin, please.
Against.
Councillor Cheryl Williams, please.
Against.
Councillor Elvid Williams, please.
Obliged.
And myself, Councillor Young, I'm for.
7, 4, 7, and 10 against.
Okay. Okay, so that application has been refused by 7 to 10, no abstentions, if that's correct. So we now need to come back to the local member with the reason why. Robin, do you want to just get involved? I'll go to Councillor Matthews first, and then we'll just take your advice. Thank you. Julie, please, just reasons why, please.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I was just trying to find my mic. Yeah, the reasons why it's the flooding in drainage. Don't know how we're going to word it, but obviously I'm personally not satisfied with the explanations, given the site is in a dip and the proximity.
Okay, Robin, any advice for that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say that the application has not been approved, but nothing yet has happened to it. So you'd have to have a proposal and a seconder for reasons for refusal. Looking back at flooding and drainage issue, there are two things that come to mind that Catherine put to you, which I think go to the heart of these issues, and which you would obviously have to think about, were you to refuse and were there to be an appeal to defend on reasons of flooding and drainage. The first issue is that the drainage scheme for this site has been designed specifically to address and to overcome the reason given by the inspector for refusal of the neighbouring site. And the second point she said is that Pwyllgor suffers from river flooding, river water flooding and surface water flooding. The river water flooding is out of scope. But the second issue with regard to surface water is that this scheme will reduce surface water flooding in the area. So these are the sort of issues that you must concentrate on if you're going to be refusing for reasons of flooding, because they will arise in an appeal, and you will obviously be required to defend the reason at an appeal if that happens. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, did you want to come in on that point?
Yes. The vote has gone against the officer's recommendation. So, on the grounds, and we're hearing that the grounds from the local councillor is a flooding, but we've heard evidence that the flooding would actually probably, what would be put in there might improve it. So that would give grounds for the developer to appeal, have strong grounds to appeal. What is the potential cost to us as an organisation, as a county, of that appeal?
I just have to manage what we can debate here, and I hear where you're coming from. Would you like to come in, Paul, please?
I'd probably defer to
Yeah.
Robin.
Okay, Robin, please. The risk we've been told about, I mean, the votes happened.
Bearing on what I've heard to date, I would say that the risk is fairly significant, because all the technical arguments presented to you stack up with, for approval of the application. And I clearly, whilst I appreciate the comments that have been made by members, I also understand that they were not highly technical in the sense that they would be from officers. So at the moment, I would say that the balance clearly rests with an approval of an appeal, with the risks that costs could follow. And I would put that as fairly significant from the information that I've heard to date. Thank you.
Okay. Members, Julie, please. Councillor Matthews, please. Can you just give us a bit more detail, please?
Apologies, Chair. Yeah. Yeah, I can appreciate what they're saying around the costs, but let me just trying to think now. Although officers have said that it may make things better, in the same breath, you said it could be exactly the same. So I'm not convinced. Okay, Robin, I agree. They may have set out, the developers set out what they will do to manage the flood and the drainage risks, but it's still a risk and it still will happen. There is climate change. There is still more and more water that will pour down onto that dip within that housing. And I'm still not convinced that what they're going to put in place will be enough to manage that risk. There was another message, it's not just the flood, the Pwyllgor bonds as well being subject to the other type of flooding. I believe that may impact on this site as well. That's why it's always boggy, it's always wet. And I'm not convinced that whatever will be put in place will be enough to keep those houses and the residents safe if that development goes ahead.
Okay, I'll bring in Paul and then we do have to move on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I understand it's a difficult position, this, and that's why we're sort of turning to our legal officer as well for advice as we go. I think ultimately it's down to planning committee to give us reasons to refuse and then potentially to defend on appeal. I think the local member and the planning committee member, Councillor Matthews, has proposed that we go with a reason for refusal purely on flood risk and drainage issues off-site. We probably need a seconder for that first and foremost in terms of the procedure, in terms of that vote. So I think we've got some hands up there from other committee members. So that's going to be proposed and seconded.
Okay, Councillor Sandland, you happy with that?
I'm happy to second, absolutely.
Jochen, thank you. Got it.
So that's having regard to the legal advice that's been given to you previously. I suppose the other question now for the planning committee is are there any other reasons that members would want this application refused on that we would then potentially have to defend on appeal? So I'll leave it there for now, Chair.
Okay, I mean one issue's enough. So yeah, I feel it's the main issue if you're going to raise any. So are you happy with just a single issue? The Gareth Sandilands and Matthews? One's enough. Julie?
Yeah, if one's enough, that's fine, because the one thing I didn't mention was the badger sets, but I think Councillor Mervyn Parry did mention that. That is a worry, having to get a licence for this site before they start building on there. There's an acknowledgement there that the wildlife and the badgers do live amongst that site. So if we need a second one, it would be.
We don't need a second.
Would be that, but if we don't, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can just come in there, Chair. I think the lack of certainty the SUDS feature would function, during a prolonged or intense that one way or another isn't good enough. We need a proven fact of drainage. That's where I would go in for. But I'm happy to go with what Julie has mentioned.
Okay. Do we need to?
I'm just going to double check with Robin now in terms of this next vote, really. We've had a proposal and a seconder to refuse the application on flood risk grounds. We just go to a normal vote again in terms of reading the members' names out. Robin, is that how we should do it?
Yes, that's how I'd recommend, yes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
So I think, again, just for clarity in terms of how we're going to vote on this, there's been a proposer and a seconder to refuse the application on flood risk grounds. If you're for that refusal reason, then you'll say for. If you're against that, then you'll say against. I think it's as simple as that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Chard, please.
For.
Councillor Edwards, please. Councillor Elson, please.
Against.
Councillor Chris Evans, please. Councillor Justine Evans, please.
For.
Councillor Harlan, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Hilders Roberts, please.
Obliged.
Councillor James, please.
Against.
Councillor Dallas Jones, please.
Yn erbyn.
Councillor Matthews, please.
For.
Councillor Paddy, please. Councillor Sandilands, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Scott, please.
Against.
Councillor Tomlin, please.
For.
Councillor Cheryl Williams, please.
For.
Councillor Elvid Williams, please.
Yn erbyn.
And myself, Councillor Young, I'm against.
Same vote again.
But that's
10 for,
okay.
7 against. So that's the reason.
Okay, so that reason's been agreed. So that application hasn't gone through. Against officer recommendation, I'm going to have a short comfort break now, if that's okay. Jock and vote. Okay. Thank you, members. Thank you, officers. Final item, I believe, item number 7, page 15, code 15/2024/0164 PF. Location is land formerly part of Tyffin, Glenarmon, Unyal. Proposal erection of agricultural building for lambing, storage, fodder and equipment. Local member is Councillor Mendes, he's committee member, but he's given his apologies. Officer recommendation is to grant. We've got no speakers, so I'll ask officers for a summary and then I'll go to questions. Jock about.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, the application is, as the Chair has just mentioned, for an agricultural shed. It's described as being for lambing and storage and of fodder and tools. It measures 6 metres by 8 metres. It's located in sort of an isolated position within the AOMB. Concerns have been raised principally about the fact that the applicant doesn't have any animals or farming, but the application clarifies that the land is rented out to another farmer who uses this area for lambing, and that's the purpose and the benefit or the justification for this development. Thank you very much. The officer's recommendation is to grant. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Paddy, did you have a question on this point? Want a clarification on, please?
Yes, yeah, just briefly, it's classed as a shed for lambing. I think I would suggest that we put the conditions on this shed that it's a livestock shed, because you can put sheep in it, but does that mean you can't put a cow in it, or a pig, or whatever at a future date, or a horse? So we usually have our agricultural sheds classed as livestock sheds or dry storage. So I think to keep consistent with that, and if we are putting changing the wording on it, that it's a livestock shed, I propose we also, as we would with any livestock shed, ask them to put a manure management plan in the conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, officers, thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, it could be tricky, the actual description, so we couldn't amend the description at this point. The description is the erection of an agricultural building for lambing and storage of fodder and equipment. Now, whether that actually precludes it being used for other livestock would be probably a matter of factor degree. We have to look at how often it was being used. In terms of the condition for the manure management plan, that's absolutely, you can recommend that condition and that would maybe help. My opinion is, I think if we went there and we found there were 2 cows, it's a relatively small shed in there. If there were 2 cows in there, we probably wouldn't find it expedient to enforce anyway. But the manure management plan would be possible. Thank you.
I'd be happy with the condition for the manure management plan.
Okay, Jock and vote, Frank. The one question about does it make it more likely to become housing was raised, and then I will move on from that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, it's always a concern in these sort of isolated units like this that someone's actually trying to establish a farmstead, which would inevitably lead to a dwelling in people's minds. I think the fact is it's a very small-scale development, and in any event, any further applications would have to be assessed on their own basis, and that would be any further agricultural sheds, and then ultimately if they even went as far as a dwelling. But I think looking at the information and justification submitted on this, it's a genuine application to help the functionality of a neighbouring farmer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I need a proposer and a seconder. Councillor Paddy is happy to...
I'll propose the application.
with the additional condition, and Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards, thank you.
That's fine.
Okay, we go to the vote. Officers.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, the officer recommendation is to grant. There's been a proposer and a seconder to grant with the addition of a manure management condition. So if members are in favour of that proposition, you will say for. If you're against, say against. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chard, please.
For.
Councillor Edwards, please. Councillor Elson, please.
For.
Councillor Justine Evans, please.
For.
Councillor Harlan, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Hilders Roberts, please.
Obliged.
Councillor James, please. Councillor Dallas Jones, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Matthews, please.
For.
Councillor Paddy, please.
For.
Councillor Sandilands, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Scott, please.
For.
Councillor Tomlin, please.
For.
Councillor Cheryl Williams, please.
For.
Councillor Elvid Williams, please.
Right.
And myself, Kathleen, I'm for.
16 for, no against.
Okay, that's 16 approval along with officer recommendation, no one against and no abstentions. And that's the end of today's meeting. Jochen Pow, thank you all. Bye. Thank you, officers.
Thank you.